Dadperfectrevenge. I hired a man to landscape my yard on a quiet Tuesday morning while my daughter was already gone for work. Less than an hour later, my phone rang and Oliver whispered, "Sir, I don't want to alarm you, but is there anyone else living in this house?" My hand went numb around the coffee mug. "What do you mean?" I asked, even as dread crept up my spine. "There's sounds," he said softly. "From your basement. Typing sounds, like someone working on a computer. And it doesn't sound like a TV." That was the moment I realized my home was hiding something I was never meant to find. My name is Mitchell Brennan, 58 years old, and I'm a retired mechanical engineer. After 35 years at Boeing, I thought I'd seen every kind of problem that could be solved with patience and methodical thinking. I was wrong. Tuesday mornings were supposed to be quiet. After Isabel passed 10 years ago, the house on Maple Street felt too big for just me and my two kids. Victor, my 28-year-old son, had moved back home after his startup failed, and Sophia, my 26-year-old daughter, had been staying with us while she worked on some big software project. At least, that's what I thought. I stood in the kitchen that morning, pouring my second cup of coffee, when Oliver Griffin called. Oliver had been doing our landscaping for 4 years, reliable as clockwork, and never called unless something was seriously wrong. Mr. Brennan, his voice carried that careful tone people use when they're afraid of bothering you. "I'm real sorry to call, but there's something out here I think you should hear." I set down the coffee pot. 35 years of engineering had taught me to pay attention when people sounded concerned. "What's going on, Oliver? I'm working on the front yard and I keep hearing this sound. Sounds like it's coming from your basement, like someone typing on a computer, real fast. It's been going on for about an hour now." I moved to the window. Oliver stood beside his truck, phone pressed to his ear, looking toward the basement windows just above ground level. Sophia had left for her downtown office at 7 o'clock that morning. Victor was supposedly at some investor meeting. The house should have been empty except for me. "I'll check it out," I said. The basement stairs creaked under my feet. 16 steps I'd walked thousands of times. Today, each one felt heavier. At the bottom, I stopped and listened. There it was. The rapid clicking of keyboard keys coming from the back corner where we'd set up Sophia's workspace 2 years earlier. I'd helped build that setup myself. We'd painted the walls, installed proper lighting, even ran Ethernet cables so she'd have a fast internet connection for her programming work. We'd worked side by side for weeks, and I'd been proud to help my daughter pursue her career. But Sophia had left an hour ago. I'd watched her drive away. I walked toward the workspace. The door was slightly open, and through the crack, I could see the blue glow of multiple computer monitors. The typing sounds were constant, professional, like someone deep in focused work. I pushed the door open. A young woman sat at the desk, her back to me, long brown hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore a faded college sweatshirt and was typing rapidly on a keyboard, lines of code scrolling across 3 large monitors. "Sophia?" I said. She spun around in the chair, and her face went white with terror. It was my daughter, but she looked wrong, too thin. Her eyes were sunken, her cheekbones sharp. She looked like she'd been living on nothing but coffee and crackers for months. "Dad," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You're not supposed to be down here." "What do you mean I'm not supposed to be down here? This is my house. And why aren't you at work?" Sophia's eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. I work from home now. Victor said it was safer. He said there were people who wanted to steal my code, and I needed to stay hidden until he could protect me." My stomach dropped. "What people? What are you talking about?" "The investors who tried to kidnap me 6 years ago. Victor saved me, but they're still looking for me. He said if they found me, they'd kill me for what I know about their fraud." Her voice was shaking. "Victor brings me food and makes sure I'm safe. He handles all my business meetings now." I stared at my daughter. 6 years ago? That would have been 2018. Sophia had been 20 then, fresh out of college with a computer science degree and a job offer from a major tech company in Seattle. But she'd never taken that job. Victor had told me she'd decided to freelance instead, that she was working on an AI project that would help support the family. "Sophia," I said carefully, "when was the last time you left this basement?" She blinked, confused. "I don't leave. It's not safe." Victor explained everything. "The people who want my algorithms, they have contacts everywhere. The FBI, the police, even the tech companies. Victor is the only one I can Trust. My hands were shaking. Show me these algorithms you're working on. She turned back to the monitors. The screens showed sophisticated code, artificial intelligence routines, machine learning protocols, data processing systems that looked advanced for what I understood about technology. This is impressive work, I said. But, Sophia, who's selling this? Who's making money from what you're creating? Victor handles all that. He has meetings with investors, but he can't tell them where I am, for security. She pulled up another window. Look, he just closed a deal last week for $28,000. He said we're building toward maybe $80,000 by the end of the year. My blood went cold. What company? Quantum Solutions. Victor started it to commercialize my work. He said when it's safe, I'll be the CTO. But for now, I have to stay hidden. I'd never heard of Quantum Solutions. And if Victor had just closed a $28,000 deal, where was that money? We were still struggling to pay the mortgage on the house. Sophia, I need you to come upstairs with me. Terror flashed across her face. No! Dad, you don't understand. If they see me, if anyone knows I'm here, who's they? Have you actually seen these people? Have you talked to them? Victor showed me the photos, the surveillance pictures. He said they've been watching the house. She was crying now. Dad, please don't make me leave. Victor said, if I'm discovered, they'll kill our whole family. I knelt beside her chair. My daughter had been living in terror for 6 years, imprisoned in our own basement, while I lived upstairs completely unaware. And my son had done this to her. Sophia, I need you to trust me. There are no investors trying to kidnap you. There never were. That's not true. Victor showed me the police report from 2018, the attempted kidnapping at the coffee shop. My heart sank. What police report? She pulled up a file on her computer. It looked official. Minneapolis Police Department letterhead, case. Numbers, detective signatures. But I'd never seen this report. In 6 years, no police officer had ever contacted us about any attempted kidnapping. I took photos of the screen with my phone. Sophia, I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to verify this information. But I need you to stay here and don't tell Victor we talked. Dad, please. Trust me. If this is real, if you're really in danger, then I'll protect you. But I need to check some things first. I went upstairs and immediately called Benjamin Carter, my lawyer friend who'd helped me with Isabel's estate. Ben, I need you to check something for me. Can you verify if this police report is real? I sent him the photos. He called back 20 minutes later. Mitchell, this report is fake. The case numbers don't exist in the MPD system, and Detective Johnson retired in 2015. This was created using some kind of police report generator. My legs gave out. I sat down hard in the kitchen chair. Ben, I think my son has been holding my daughter prisoner in our basement for 6 years. What? Mitchell, I'm serious. She thinks she's hiding from kidnappers, but I think Victor created the whole story. Jesus Christ. Mitchell, you need to call the police. Now. I will. But I need more evidence first. If I'm wrong, you're not wrong. Trust your instincts. That evening, Victor came home around 6 o'clock. He walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and started talking about his investor meeting. Great news, Dad. Quantum Solutions just landed another client. We're looking at steady income now, maybe $15,000 a month if we can keep this momentum going. I watched his face carefully. That's fantastic, son. Can I see some of the paperwork? I'd love to understand the business better. Something flickered in his eyes. The investors require strict confidentiality agreements. I can't share details until we're more established. Of course. But you mentioned Sophia's algorithms are the foundation of the company. How is she handling the pressure of being the technical lead? Victor's jaw tightened. She's fine. She prefers working alone. You know how she is with social anxiety. Social anxiety? Victor, Sophia was the most outgoing kid in her college class. She loved being around people. People change, Dad. The stress of this level of innovation, it takes a toll. I nodded like I believed him. Well, maybe I could just say hi to her. I haven't seen her much lately. She's in deep focus mode. Major deadline coming up. It's better not to interrupt. That night, after Victor went to bed, I went back down to the basement. Sophia was still at the computer, but she'd been crying. "Dad," she whispered when she saw me. "Did you check? Are those people real?" "No, honey, they're not real. The police report Victor showed you is fake. There's no Quantum Solutions company registered anywhere, and there's no $28,000. She stared at me, and I watched 6 years of carefully constructed lies crumble in her eyes. But why would Victor? I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Over the next week, while Victor was at his meetings, I documented everything. Benjamin helped me trace financial records. What we found made me sick. Victor had been using Sophia's social security number to set up credit cards and loans, racking up $40,000 in debt under her name. He'd been selling her code to actual companies through freelancing websites, but keeping all the money for himself. We found online gambling records. Victor had blown through $50,000 in poker losses over 4 years. He was desperate, broke, and he'd turned my daughter into his personal cash machine while convincing her she was hiding for her life. Victoria Manning, Sophia's college roommate, helped us with the technical analysis when I finally worked up the courage to call her. She'd been trying to reach Sophia for years. "I thought something happened to her," Victoria said when I explained the situation. "She just disappeared after graduation. I tried calling, texting, even showed up at your house a few times. But Victor always said she was traveling or working on secret projects." Victoria confirmed that the code Sophia had been writing was genuinely impressive, advanced enough to be worth good money if properly marketed. But instead of sharing the profits or helping Sophia build a legitimate career, Victor had convinced her that she was hiding from kidnappers while he sold her work piece by piece and gambled away the proceeds. The hardest part was understanding how Victor had maintained the deception for so long. He'd created fake news websites with articles about tech industry kidnappings. He'd forged police reports and FBI warnings. He'd even hired people online to call the house pretending to be federal agents, warning that Sophia needed to stay hidden for the family's safety. For 6 years, he'd brought her meals, controlled her access to information, and gradually isolated her from everyone who might have questioned his story. He'd convinced her that leaving the basement meant death for the whole family. "The psychological manipulation is textbook," Benjamin explained, when we reviewed all the evidence. "It's called coercive control." Victor created a false reality and then became Sophia's only source of information about the outside world. When we had enough evidence, the fake documents, the financial fraud, the gambling records, the identity theft, I called the FBI. Computer fraud and identity theft across state lines are federal crimes, and Victor had been selling Sophia's code to companies in California and Texas. "Mr. Brennan," Agent Sarah Collins said when she interviewed me, "this is one of the most sophisticated cases of family manipulation we've seen. Your son created an entire false reality to keep your daughter productive and compliant." The investigation took 3 weeks. They found that Victor had earned approximately $180,000 over 6 years selling Sophia's code, about $30,000 per year, that he'd either gambled away or spent in maintaining his fake lifestyle. Meanwhile, Sophia had been living on whatever food he brought her, believing she was a fugitive hiding from dangerous criminals. The arrest happened on a Thursday morning. Victor was in the kitchen, making coffee and telling me about another client meeting when Agent Collins and 2 other agents knocked on the door. "Victor Brennan, you're under arrest for computer fraud, identity theft, and unlawful imprisonment." He looked at me with genuine shock. "Dad? What's going on?" "I found her, Victor. I found your sister." His face went white, then red. Then he started shouting about how I didn't understand, how he'd been protecting Sophia, how she would have left us like everyone else did. "She was going to take that job in Seattle," he screamed as they put the handcuffs on him. "She was going to abandon us just like Mom did. I kept our family together. Mom died, Victor. She didn't. Abandon us. And you didn't keep our family together. You destroyed it." As they led him away, Victor kept yelling about how Sophia was fragile, how she needed protection, how the world was dangerous for someone with her talents. Even then, even caught red-handed, he genuinely believed he'd been doing the right thing. The trial lasted 8 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Victor was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and unlawful imprisonment. The judge called it one of the most calculating cases of family manipulation she'd ever seen. The defendant didn't just steal money, she said during sentencing. He stole 6 years of his sister's life. He stole her freedom, her relationships, her career development, and her trust. The psychological damage from this level of manipulation will take years to heal. The hardest part for me was understanding my own role in what happened. How had I lived in the same house for 6 years without noticing that my daughter was being held prisoner in the basement? How had I believed Victor's lies so easily? Benjamin helped me work through it during several long conversations. You trusted your son because that's what parents do. Victor exploited that trust. He was counting on your love for both your children to keep you from asking too many questions. The signs had been there. Sophia never seemed to go anywhere. I never saw her with friends. Her business trips that Victor talked about never seemed to result in her actually traveling. But I'd been busy with my own retirement transition, dealing with my grief over Isabel, and trying to support what I thought were 2 adult children building their careers. Hindsight is 20/20, Benjamin said. You can't blame yourself for not recognizing something this elaborate. Victor had years to perfect his system. Sophia spent 4 months in intensive therapy before she felt ready to leave the house again. Dr. Rachel Martinez, her psychologist, explained that victims of long-term manipulation often struggle with basic decisions after their freedom is restored. Sophia has to relearn how to trust her own judgment, Dr. Martinez told me during one of our family sessions. For 6 years, Victor was her only source of information about reality. Breaking free from that level of control takes time and patience. The first time Sophia walked outside in 6 years, she stood in our front yard for 30 minutes, just feeling the sun on her face. She kept looking around, as if she expected Victor to appear and drag her back inside. It's so bright, she said, squinting at the afternoon sky. I forgot how bright the world is. We started small. Trips to the grocery store with me, coffee with Victoria, her college friend who'd never stopped looking for her. Slowly, Sophia began to remember who she'd been before Victor convinced her she was in danger. It took her 8 months to feel comfortable sleeping in a room with the door closed. She'd gotten used to the constant awareness that Victor might come downstairs at any time. Privacy felt dangerous to her. I keep thinking he's going to walk in and tell me the danger is back, she confided to me one evening. Like this freedom is just temporary, and soon I'll have to go back to hiding. But gradually, Sophia began to reclaim her life. She started her own legitimate tech company, Bright Code Solutions, specializing in the same kind of AI algorithms she'd been developing in the basement. But this time, she was the one making the business decisions, meeting with clients, and controlling her own income. The first check she received, $35,000 for a data processing system she'd designed for a logistics company, made her cry. Not from joy, but from the realization of how much money Victor had stolen from her over the years. I could have been financially independent by now, she said, staring at the check. I could have had my own place, my own life. Instead, I was living like a prisoner while he spent my earnings on poker games. We sold the house on Maple Street 18 months after Victor's arrest. Neither of us could stand to live there anymore, knowing what had happened in that basement. Every time I walked past the stairs, I thought about my daughter sitting down there, terrified and isolated, while I watched TV upstairs, completely oblivious. Our new place is a 2-bedroom condo downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows and lots of natural light. Sophia insisted on that. I need to see the sky, she said when we were house hunting. I need to know I can see the whole world from wherever I am. She's doing well now, better than well. Bright Code Solutions has 6 employees and contracts with major companies across the Midwest. Sophia speaks at tech conferences about AI development, and she's working on a book about her experience. Not a victim story, she explained to me, a survivor story. I want people to understand how manipulation works, especially in families. Victor didn't hit me or physically threaten me. He convinced me that the cage he built was for my own protection. The book is called Code of Silence: How Family Love Became My Prison. She's donating half the proceeds to organizations that help victims of domestic manipulation and coercive control. Sometimes people ask me how I didn't know my daughter was being held prisoner in my own house for 6 years. The answer isn't simple. Victor had created a system so elaborate that even I, living in the same house, believed his version of reality. He'd convinced me that Sophia was a brilliant but fragile freelancer who preferred working from home. He'd shown me fake contracts, fake client testimonials, even fake tax documents showing her business income. When I asked why I never saw her, he'd say she was on deadline, or traveling for work, or dealing with social anxiety. The truth is, I wanted to believe him. After Isabel died, I was struggling with my own grief and trying to figure out retirement. Having two successful adult children made me feel like I'd done something right as a parent. I didn't look too closely because the story Victor told me was the story I wanted to hear. That's exactly how these manipulators operate, Dr. Martinez explained during one of our sessions. They tell us what we want to believe, then gradually make us complicit in maintaining their fiction. Benjamin helped me understand the legal aspects of what had happened. Victor committed multiple federal crimes, he explained. Identity theft, computer fraud, unlawful imprisonment. But the psychological crime, stealing 6 years of his sister's life, that's something no court can fully address. The financial recovery was easier than the emotional recovery. Victor was ordered to pay $180,000 in restitution, the full amount he'd earned from selling Sophia's code. Of course, he'd gambled most of it away, so we'll probably never see that money. But Sophia's legitimate business is thriving now, so the financial damage is being repaired. The family damage is harder to fix. Victor writes letters from prison, long, rambling explanations of how he was protecting Sophia, how he was keeping our family together after losing Isabel. I stopped reading them after the first few. Sophia has never opened a single one. I understand that he's sick, she told me. I understand that he probably believes he was helping me, but understanding doesn't mean forgiving. What he did to me, what he stole from me, that's not something I can just forgive because he had good intentions. She's right. Good intentions don't excuse 6 years of imprisonment. Love doesn't justify manipulation and control. And family loyalty doesn't mean accepting abuse. I've learned things about myself through this experience that I wish I didn't know. I learned that I'm capable of living in denial when the truth is too uncomfortable. I learned that my trust can be exploited, even by my own children. I learned that being a good father isn't just about loving your kids. It's about paying attention to them, really paying attention. But I've also learned things that give me hope. I learned that Sophia is stronger than I ever imagined. I learned that the truth, even when it's terrible, is always better than a comfortable lie. I learned that it's never too late to start protecting the people you love, as long as you're willing to see them clearly. Sophia forgave me for not finding her sooner, but I'm still working on forgiving myself. Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about all the signs I missed, all the questions I didn't ask, all the times I could have looked deeper into Victor's stories. You can't live in those what-ifs, Sophia tells me when I get stuck in that loop. Victor spent years planning his deception. You're not a detective or a psychologist. You were just a father trying to trust his son. She's probably right, but I'll never make that mistake again. Now I ask questions, I verify stories, I trust, but I also pay attention. And every morning when I see Sophia working on her laptop in our bright living room with the windows open and the sun streaming in, I remember what we won. We won her freedom. We won the truth. And we won a second chance to be the family we should have been all along. If you're listening to this story and thinking about your own family, about the people you trust and the stories they tell you, remember this. Love without vigilance isn't protection. Trust without verification isn't wisdom. And sometimes the people who claim to be protecting us are the ones we most need protection from. Pay attention, ask questions, and never stop fighting for the people you love, even when the fight is against someone you love. Sometimes the greatest danger to our family comes not from strangers outside our door, but from the person sitting at our dinner table who has learned to weaponize our love against us. The price of blind trust is always paid by someone else. And in families, that someone is usually the person who trusts us most completely.